So in this video, I'm going to take the time to point out what I believe is a red flag. I've watched at least like 5 videos on the subject. There was a point in time where I have watched them because I considered trying to achieve what it was that the video was suggesting or offering, right? But I can imagine that I'm not the only person who has either heard of, seen, or watched a video where a person talks about what you can do to make somebody obsessed with you and ultimately chase you, right? Make them chase you, right? Yeah, I'm gonna call it out for what I think it is. I think it's a red flag. The dynamic in and of itself is exceedingly extreme and imbalanced. Um, Getting a person to be obsessed with you is just such a fascinating thing, and of course, that would probably be to fill a void of insecurity within an individual because they probably don't feel good about themselves and they utilize tactics and dynamics like that to feel better about themselves. Um, I'm not here to claim any superiority. I'm just here, as always, to look at everything for what it is, or to look at something for exactly what it is, and really to identify and point out the smoke and mirrors that kind of, I don't know, cast out and reel you in, lure you in. That's really what it's all about. And a lot of things out there, a lot of people out there are really good at doing that. So, how to get a person to be absolutely obsessed with you? You know, I mean, I'm just going to say it for what it is. Sounds unhealthy, right? Um, how to get them to chase you, right? I'm going to point out a massive element that I believe is emotional immaturity here, right? It sounds like the dynamic consists of games that would be played between, I mean, at this point, at least 2 people. I mean, in this day and age, people are pursuing different kinds of relationships that entail more than just 2 people, and that's fine, to each his own. I'm not here to tell you what to do, what not to do, this, that, and the other. But let's say that maybe there's something a lot less enticing about, I mean, this would be for people that are, I guess emotionally immature, right? Is there something a lot less enticing about a relationship without games, right? I've had experience in relationships that entail a lot of games, a lot of chasing. No names, of course. But I do. I have experience. And in my own experience, it's completely fucking exhausting, right? But people that are used to this, right? People that are used to a dynamic of, chasing, maybe something happened in their childhood and it's just a pattern that they're repeating, right? Repetition compulsion. It could have a lot to do with that, right? And therefore, it's just them repeating a pattern. And it's comfortable and it's familiar and it gets the hormones of stress kicking in, the adrenaline and cortisol, and they're used to that dynamic. And maybe one of the people feels important because they're being chased and they like the high, they like the rush, right? And the other side of the spectrum, which, I mean, I would argue that entire dynamic of playing games and relationships is both unhealthy and emotionally immature. But the other end of the spectrum is that there is no smoke and mirrors. There's no guessing. There's no wondering. There is full-on healthy communication where 2 people talk things out. Hey, I like you. Hey, I like you too. For some people, that's not interesting. That's not fun. That's like killing the fucking dynamic of the high that would be presented in unhealthy dynamics, right? I don't believe that it's healthy to try to get a person obsessed with you, right? Why? Because obsession is a very extreme experience of life, right? What does that tell me? That leads, or I should say, that leans closer to black or white thinking for me, right? Which is, again, an extreme way of looking at things. It's either this or it's that. There's no in between, right? Is a person to be obsessed with their significant other or with their wife or this, that, and the other? They are to be interested, which helps them maintain a balanced and healthy relationship. But are they to be obsessed? Well, if they're totally obsessed, then maybe they can't focus on other things in their life. Maybe their other friends, maybe their work, right? Maybe obviously they need to focus on their work, because if they don't focus on their work, then maybe they can't, you know, acquire income, which would allow them to support their life and their relationship with their significant other. There are, obviously, a lot of videos on social media that I would argue to be a red flag. I'm not going to really call it like a, I mean, I don't know. I was going to say a danger zone. But I just like to look at this for what it is. You know, how to get a person obsessed with you, how to get a person to chase you. Those are games of immaturity, right? It's sometimes, well, I mean, I'll just say it as in general, for people that like games, right, that like to be, obsessed with, or that like to be chased, right? The game ends when they find out that the person likes them. They might actually become less attracted to a person if they find out that the person likes them. Because why? I mean, it gets really deep and dark, but quite honestly, they might just absolutely fucking hate themselves. And the idea of somebody else liking them or loving them makes them want to vomit their fucking guts out everywhere. Because if they hate themselves, they obviously don't love themselves, right? Especially if they're in a total living state of black or white thinking, right? It's either this or it's that. And if it's self-hatred, then it's definitely not self-love. And if they find out that you like or love them, then it totally throws them off. So that's why this game of chasing continues going on, because they don't want to know that you love them, because then the game's over. They don't want to know that you like them, because the game's over. They just want the chase to continue happening, because that's probably the dynamic they learned early on in life. But getting back to the matter of whether or not it's healthy to get somebody obsessed with you and to get them to chase you, I would argue that it's not. One, because that can get both unhealthy. Well, I mean, obviously it's already unhealthy. It could get further into the red and then lead to very dangerous situations for both people, right? But I'm really just here to call this out for what I think it is. I think that these advices of getting people to chase you and getting people to be obsessed with you, I think it's a red flag. I think it's an unhealthy dynamic, and I think that it can lead to serious consequences for a person. I have personally in the past been interested in trying to get somebody to chase me, or trying to get somebody to be obsessed with me. But as I have grown and evolved and matured and everything, I realize that it's just an exceedingly imbalanced dynamic. It's unhealthy, and balance is important in a person's life, in a person's relationships, or just in this case, one specific relationship. Understanding that a person needs to be able to focus on other things in their life rather than just the person that they're attracted to is also important. My life didn't always used to look balanced, but now as I heal and I get healthier and I evolve and I grow, I understand the importance of balance, right? It's necessary. When things get out of balance, you start to not feel good. That's just the reality of it. The same thing happens in relationships. If a person gets obsessed with you, things are going to start to feel weird for them. If a person decides to chase you, they could get into trouble. Something could happen to them, and that's just the reality of it. And so, yeah, I call this stuff out for what I think it is, a red flag. And I mean, there's so much more to talk about in terms of it, but yeah, I think it's a red flag. I think it's unhealthy.